After a couple of days of harsh labor and taunting from our captors, we introduced ourselves to the rest of the slaves that were in our pen. The others are as follows. A male Darrow, a dwarf-like race similar but smaller in stature with bluish-gray skin, with their eyes having no iris or pupils. A Quaggoth, a large cat-like creature. From what I've heard, they are known like extremely vicious and bloodthirsty. A Kuatoa male, a fish-like race, a gray-skin orc male. He seems very mean-spirited and he likes to bully, just by observing him. A female dwarf with red hair like myself. 3 deep gnomes, 2 of which look like they could be twins. For a brother and a sister. They tend to stay away from the third one for some reason. A very small myconid. I've also heard them he referred to as the fungi folk. I've heard of them in passing in the taverns of Waterdeep since the Festival of Heroes has started. For my first adventure with the New Aura Party contingency, before we were even named that. And last but not least, and very strangely, a male drow. He seems to be very quiet and keeps to himself mostly. Verban was the first to try to introduce himself to the other captors. He made his way over to the Quaggoth and tried to talk to him. Sadly, they ran into a language barrier between the two. After Verban had excused himself, the Quaggoth did something interesting. He bowed in his direction. Verban then turned towards the myconid, and when it saw him approach, it began to press itself against the stone wall, as if it was afraid. I came over to try and help. I opened my arms to show it that we meant no harm. But the myconid tried to run away, but it got too close to the gray-skinned orc, who swatted him away harshly, knocking him to the ground, injuring the poor thing. Verban quickly stood up for the small myconid, getting into a heated argument with the orc. It came to a head when Verban tried to cast a spell. Sadly, nothing happened. It seems something is dampening his magic. Verban didn't take it very well. He fell into a depressed state, where he leaned against the stone wall, sliding down into a sitting position. Lady Lex, being herself, started scolding the orc, which angered him more, and he began to stalk in her direction. Before he got too close, Garrett got between the two to protect Lady Lex. I noticed that the female dwarf was creeping up on them, so I moved in to back up Garrick since I was unsure of her intentions. Lady Lex started using her persuasive ways to defuse the situation. After listening to her, the orc called himself Front back down, and so did the dwarf. Seeing that the situation calmed down, I went back to assist the myconid, where I found him trembling with fear. Verban was still in the same spot with a sad look on his face. It was not something I was used to seeing from the normally confident wild sorcerer. I opened up my arms once again to indicate I was no threat. When I got close to the myconid, it suddenly released a spore cloud at me, and Verban was nearly caught in it, but he managed to cover his nose and mouth. But I was not so fortunate. That's when I heard it. The voice of a child. It seems my bad luck this time, with the slow to react, turned into a blessing. I could now communicate with the myconid child. He was begging me not to hurt him. I told him that we meant him no harm, and he told me his name was Stool. He didn't ask if Verban would hurt him. I explained to him that Verban was a friend, and he replied with a high-pitched "Really?" and leaped into Verban's arms. He was enjoying the half-fire Genasi's warmth. This brought a small smile to Verban's lips. Lady Lex made her way back over to Ront to talk to him some more. She managed to convince him to apologize to Stool by telling him the only way to escape the pen was to work together with everyone. To the others, surprise. He apologized, even though it was in a very strange manner when he stood up and said that he was sorry. I could tell he's not used to apologizing. Gareth then started a conversation with the dwarf female, who quickly tensed up and asked him what clan he had belonged to and which orc god he worshipped. Gareth told her that he didn't belong to any clan and that the god he worshipped was Old Neville, the orc god of strategic warfare. I stepped up beside Gareth, took his hand into mine, and I told her that he was my boyfriend in Dwarvish. This greatly shocked her, as she introduced herself a moment later as Eldeth Feldrotten, and told us that she was a shield dwarf scout, and that her people were consistently fighting Ront's clan. After Garrick had finished speaking with Eldeth, he went up to the Quaggoth. He tried speaking to him in Elvish, just to see if he would respond. He did. The Quaggoth understood the Elvish language, which impressed me, because I had no idea that Garrick even knew Elvish. Garrick would relay to us that the Quaggoth is named Prince Durandal, and he claims that he is a polymorphed elven prince. Jimjar, one of the deep gnomes, approached me as Garrick spoke to Durandal, whispering to me that he thinks the Quaggoth is crazy. I found out from him that he enjoyed betting and gambling and all sorts of mischief, and he would take all sorts of bets. Apparently, he made a makeshift thieves' tool out of stone. He did say he could only use it once. Lady Lex asked him if he could loosen her bindings. With a little convincing, he agreed. He also made it where her bindings wouldn't lock all the way. The first thing she did once they were loosened was try to cast. That's when we found out the bindings themselves are not causing the effect of canceling the magic abilities. It must be something about the pen itself. Verban stood up with stool in his arms and made his way over to the Kuatoa. It turned out that he spoke common. Verban learned that his name was Trushar, and that he was a pacifist. This didn't sit very well with Verban, since he found out that he would never lift a finger to aid Stool while Ront bullied him consistently. Verban walked away from him very angrily. Lady Lex approached Darrow first. Once again, his language barrier prevented us to gather information from someone. After she had walked away from him, I made my way over to him. Since he looked like a dwarf, to an extent, I decided to try to speak to him in Dwarvish. And it worked. He indeed spoke the language. As we conversed, I found out his name was Boobido. He claimed he was a traveler before his capture by the Drow. I asked him if he could lead us through the Underdark. He said he would be able to try. There was no guarantee. Lady Lex made her way over to Shushar to speak to him about what his abilities were. He shared that he had the abilities of a cleric and he could heal people. She asked him if he would aid us in such matters when we escaped. He did agree, but he emphasized he would not fight. After speaking with both Boobido and Jimjar, I made my way over to the twin deep gnomes. I came to find out the talkative one is known as Topsy, and her twin brother, who seemed rather gloomy, was named Turvy. According to the two of them, they had already been in the pen for less than a month, and that they were captured while they were foraging for food. They told me about how the Drow ate their Rothy mount. This brought a tear to my eye, for no one should have their mount eaten by anyone, at least in my opinions. Asher was the one who spoke to the male Drow. His name was Sereth. As they spoke, he informed her that he was imprisoned for murder, but he doesn't remember anything from that night. We also received information from our new allies about the outpost. The main Drow we saw earlier was named Jorlin Dushgrin. He was the former lover of the priestess Selvar and her lieutenant. The other male that was with him was named Shore, and he is her new lover. He also carries the wand of web that used to be Jorland's when he was her lieutenant. They also told us that the guard tower that overlooks our pen has 3 guards at any given time. Suddenly, 3 drow guards entered the slave pen. They gathered up Verben, Stool, Buido, and myself and told us to follow them. They led us through the dimly lit outpost towards a pen filled with Quaggoth. They were feeding on some strange-looking meat piles. Sadly, Stool pointed out that one of the meat piles used to be a former slave. The task given to us was to harvest the poisonous mushrooms in the pen. The drow made the Quaggoths move away from the immediate area, even though that the Quaggoth listened to the drow. That didn't fill me with too much confidence if we failed in our task, that the drow would probably feed us to one of them, or all of them. Bourbon and I managed to complete the task without incident. Unfortunately, Stool and Buido were not as lucky. They became poisoned by the mushrooms by mishandling them. After the harvesting, we were escorted back to the pen. Since Verben and I had done well for the task, we were not punished. To be continued, fellow adventurers.